Hello friends, welcome to this transformational venture. Our today's topic is COVID-19 catastrophe and survival strategy for the startups and MSME. The learning objectives are to examine present business scenario in the context of COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the startups and MSMEs. To identify the risk arising out of COVID-19 pandemic, to discuss the opportunities in disguise arising out of COVID-19 pandemic, to prepare the survival plans and strategies to cope up with the situation. After attending this session, you shall be able to prepare the business assessment matrix and business survival plan in the context of COVID-19 pandemic by modifying the risk assessment matrix and risk assessment plan, risk mitigation plan, which we have learned in technical session 1. Next. COVID-19 pandemic is the biggest global health crisis of our time. COVID-19 is much more than a health crisis. The outbreak of COVID-19 is an unprecedented human and economic catastrophe. It is the greatest challenge we have faced since World War II. Since its emergence in Asia late last year, the virus has spread to every continent except Antarctica. Cases are rising every day. Countries are racing to slow the spread of this virus by testing and treating the patients, carrying out contact tracing, limiting the travels, quarantining citizens, and cancelling large gatherings such as sports events, concerts, cinema halls, schools, etc. International Labour Organization, ILO, estimates that 195 million jobs could be lost across the world after this COVID-19 pandemic. Already shopping malls, cinema halls, restaurants, hotels, amusement parks, all are closed. The places heavily dependent on tourism have empty hotels and deserted beaches. Every day, people are losing their jobs and income, with no way of knowing when normality will return. The financial and economic implications would be worse than those of the dot-com crash in 2000, which was followed by a quick succession by the 9/11 terrorist attack, and then 8 years later, the onset of the global financial crisis. In the aftermath of the dot-com bubble and global financial crisis, both the United States and Indian equity markets lost more than half the value. Following the global financial crisis in the year 2009, global GDP growth turned negative for the first time in more than 50 years. While most emerging economies did not suffer a recession in 2009, it took severe years for the Western economies to recover, to return to their pre-crisis levels of economic activity. COVID-19 pandemic is going to exceed all these examples of this century. Next, please. Small businesses are always vulnerable to any recession or economic depression. Unfortunately, the impact on startups or small businesses can be way more brutal as they have shortage of cash reserves and a smaller margin of profit. The small industries are the most vulnerable one that we understand very clearly. It is because of their size, their scale of operation, their limited financial resources. They are not able to cope up with the difficulties that are forced on them. It is difficult even in normal times for them to survive. But they don't have the capacity to deal with something to unexpected situations like this. United States Small Business Administration survey showed that about a quarter of small businesses never recover after a disaster. Small companies need to identify their vulnerable factors and potential problems. It's important to make survival strategy and plan accordingly to cope up with the crisis. Next, please. Earlier slide, please. Yes. Next, please. Next. Yes. Hit by the COVID-19 slump, followed by social distancing and nationwide lockdown, businesses are experiencing major impacts in recent past. It has become challenging for most businesses to keep their financial wheels turning during the lockdown period due to less revenue churn and the general uncertainty in the global financial environment. The effect of this shutdown will have a key impact on Indian economy, as all the business sectors are getting affected, resulting in low revenue generation due to an eventual halt on the sale of products or services. It is expected that India's growth rate in the financial year 2021 will be down to only 2% or less from a range of 5 to 6% as it was expected and predicted earlier by the credit rating agency ICRA. In this chart, the sectors who are affected badly, the sectors who are affected moderately low or insignificant are listed down. From our experience, we can say that the civil aviation, transport, tourism, hotels, restaurant, amusement park, shopping malls, cinema halls, entertainment industry, sports, finance, these are heavily affected sectors after COVID-19. The medium affected sectors are heavy industry, construction material industry such as iron and steel, cement, etc., textile industry, automobile, retail, banking and insurance. And the sectors where the impact of this lockdown or the impact of this COVID-19, the economic impact, I want to say, is not that much significant. These sectors are pharma and healthcare, hospitals, education to some extent, primary and secondary agriculture, food and beverage, IT and ITAs, electronics and white goods. So, the first sector where the impact is highest are most vulnerable, followed by the other sectors. This is important to have this classification to make a strategy and plan accordingly. Next, please. Business risk management for COVID-19 situation. The impact of COVID-19 is being felt by almost all businesses around the world. Leaders are navigating a broad range of interrelated issues that span from keeping their employees and customers safe, shoring up cash and liquidity, reorienting operations, and navigating complicated government support program. To help you understand the implications of COVID-19 and more importantly, the best position your business to be resilient in the future, review the latest thinking and insights from the professionals from around the world. No matter how established the businesses are, all have to relook at how they manage and operate their business during and after lockdown, including revisitation of their business plans. Inaction is the riskiest response to any uncertainties of an economic crisis. However, rushing or scattershotting action can be more damaging than inaction. Rising anxiety, such as how much worse are the things likely to get, how long is this going to last, this kind of anxieties are coming to us And the growing pressure to do something often produces a variety of uncoordinated moves that target the wrong problem or overshoot the right one. A disorganized response can also generate a sense of panic in any organization that will distract people from seeing something crucial important, the hidden but significant opportunities nestled among the bad economic conditions. Next slide, please. In our previous session, we have learned risk assessment matrix, how to prepare it. Now, in the context of a particular problem, COVID-19 situation, and to deal with this problem and to prepare ourselves, we have to make business impact assessment matrix. The form is very simple. You jot down all the risk factors that you can foresee for your business due to COVID-19, and you place them in this 3x3 matrix. It will be easier for you to prepare a business survival plan based on this business impact assessment matrix. The critical factors, the significant factors, and the limited factors will be prominent easily if you put all the risk factors in this 3x3 matrix. And thus we shall prepare our next level of action, the business survival plan, which I am going to explain you. Next slide, please. So, during such testing times, startup entrepreneurs will have to adapt to a new set of rules and be mindful of the following aspects to alleviate risk and to survive the slowdown caused by the impact of COVID-19. Number one, tracking expenses against the revenue status. During this contagion, it is of utmost importance for businesses to conduct a proper assessment of their fixed and variable expenses as well as the actual revenues. This assessment will have a clear picture of where a company stands financially and help the entrepreneurs in planning ahead in the current disconcerted market. This strategy can be implemented even when the pandemic effect settles down. Number two is checking the feasibility of the business model. considering the market is changing every week and for the worse, it is imperative to reconsider the business model and reassess where your business stands as per your assumptions concerning the revenue and cost. This is also a crucial time to track current financial matrices and cash flow. Be mindful of what your runaway is. Businesses need to evaluate the impact on new sales collections, credit cycles, and the potential bad debts. Third is plan policies for next 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months. Since it is difficult to gauge how long this epidemic will last, it is important to be prepared for all the scenarios. If we consider it as a 6-month problem, an instant halt on variable expenditures like hiring, marketing, travel, etc., can help. However, if the crisis continues for 9 months to a year, entrepreneurs will have to reconfigure their business strategy to reduce the variable expenditures, renegotiate fixed expenditure like rent, salary, equipment, lease payment, etc., and focus only on the crucial essentials for the survival. It may be a good idea to revisit sales strategy, selling online versus in person. Analyze if you need to cut back or scale up on marketing cost. Some serious reconsiderations would be required if the effect of the pandemic continues for 18 months or beyond. Businesses will need to strategize, communicate, and act with compassion. They will require a revision of sales revenue goals and product timelines according to a new reoperating plan. In that case, entrepreneurs and leaders will have to keep the communication transparent as much as possible with their investors and employees, who are the major stakeholders of your business. Last but not the least, be patient in securing investments. Every business needs capital to run, and the question that crosses the mind of every founder, entrepreneur in this difficult time is from where they will get the capital. There are many fund options who have enough capital to deploy for the coming years, and they may not shy away from it. Trust me. However, we might witness a dip in venture capital funding in the short run. Investors will be more vigilant and may take longer than usual to make funding decisions after following stringent diligence procedures. But there is nothing to worry about it, Because if we look at the previous economic downfalls, we can notice the market eventually bounce back after the end of the epidemic crisis. In order to extend this runway, businesses can even approach their existing investors for additional funding. Since they are already invested and have their skin in this game, which we technically term as sunk cost, they are more likely to help you out during this difficult time. Next slide, please. We can follow a simple 5-step model for our business survival plan during this lockdown period. First, we have to check the business resilience, which is very crucial for your business survival. Business resilience is actually the ability to rapidly adapt and respond to business disruptions, safeguard people and assets while maintaining continuous business operations. Business resilience planning provides guidance for ensuring the ability of business to respond, resume, and restore to a predetermined level of operations following a disruption. Your organization's ability to recover from a disruption from minor to severe is critical for your survival. Although the probability of a major disruption may be low within a given year, the impact of even minor disruptions can have a significant impact on productivity and profit. In USA, approximately 40% of small businesses don't recover when they are affected by such a disastrous event. Based on your own historical cost records, estimate your hourly cost. Think about your organization and how much revenue you will lose for every hour that you are not in business. Building a business resilience plan will increase your recovery time and decrease those business productivity and revenue losses. The second important step is to understand that natural disasters are not the only cause of business disruption. I recall some of our participants have asked me in my last session whether COVID is the only cause of business disruption. No, it's not. But there are trends of such business disruption due to the natural disasters, and this trend is increasing. They can be devastating where they hit, and they are highly visible across the country. Though naturally occurring, and weather-related events are something to prepare for. There are other disruptions that need to be addressed, which are in business risk. To know best which threats your organization is most susceptible to, it is important to understand the criticality of individual operations in your business. Prioritize business functions through a formal risk assessment matrix, which can lead to a smooth understanding of the risk at large and paints a better picture of what we can take to become more resilient. We have discussed this in our last session, so I think you will be grasping this point very easily. A risk assessment identifies and analyzes business risk and all associated threats. The objective is to understand the effectiveness of existing risk that controls and identify additional risk treatments to decrease the likelihood or severity of disruptions to organizations' essential business functions. Going through a formal risk assessment process can be a very effective way to prioritize your business resilience planning efforts. I believe the exercise that we have given to you regarding this risk assessment, you are working on it, and you will soon prepare the risk assessment plan for your organization. The third important step is an emergency response plan, which is very important, but it is not enough. You should have an emergency action plan, as it is sometimes it is mandatory under occupational safety and health standards. All businesses in India should also have a documented emergency action plan that your employees are trained on that plan. It is time like these that your business continuity plan becomes a lifesaver for you. An effective business continuity plan is the cornerstone of effective planning efforts that will frame your ability to respond, resume, and recover. The fourth step is you need a ready workforce to recover rapidly. To create our ready workforce, we need education, we need exercises and drills, and an overall cultural change, even for the small organizations. It's easy for the small organization to implement all. It takes frequent and effective training to build the muscle memory we need to act during an emergency. We want to build the right kind of muscle memory for our emergency response. Education prepares us to better respond in an emergency. If you have not done if you have not done a fire evacuation deal at your organization, then do one day. If you have not done a tabletop exercise at your organization, do with your team members immediately. What you learn during these drills and exercises, that will help you to make your business more resilient. There are
तुम भूलना मत लक्ष्मीवान
fix them before an event occurs. Training is also a great way to engage your workforce, particularly during the emergency period, because this training improves the quality of the personnel. Everyone from every corner of the organization plays a role in your business continuity that you have to understand, and has something to benefit from the continuity of the operations. The last step is to make a business survival kit for your organization following these 4 steps. Business resilience planning is a long-term strategic planning initiative that we have to understand. It looks at many areas of your business and can range from simple to complex. But to get you started, you can make a big difference in your resilience by conducting these 4 key steps. 1. Chain of command. Who is in charge? One person must be in charge during an emergency. He or she should be accountable for that. There must be a backup for that person and another backup for that person. This is not always the same person that in charge during a non-emergency period. This person, often identified as the incident commander, must have the authority to make decisions, appropriate training, and the resources to perform their duties. It is crucial that everyone knows who is in charge and that this is practiced and emphasized during your exercises and drills. Second is prioritize your essential functions. How will you prioritize? You need to know what the essential functions and business processes are that will keep your business alive during a disruptive event. In business, essential functions are not instinctive and must be regularly assessed to know how to respond effectively in the time of disruption. During a disruptive event, you may not be able to execute all of your normal functions. What are the top 3 things you have to do to keep your clients or customers satisfied or to keep the revenue flowing? That's the question. The business impact analysis process is the tool to determine what it takes operationally to keep your business alive. The business impact analysis process identifies essential functions by department to determine the minimum level of operational requirement for the business to continue. The outcome of business impact analysis include a prioritized list of functions for each of the activities, recovery time objectives for those functions, and a desired minimum level of operations to return to following a disruption. Because your business may not be able to do everything in a disruptive state. Identifying those functions are required to support your most essential functions. Third important aspect is alternative sites. Whether you will go, if you cannot realize your physical space, whether this physical space are utilized properly or not, like office, plant, stores, whatever it is, can you continue business? By using the result of your business impact analysis and looking at those prioritized essential functions, you can determine if you need a physical space to continue to function, or you can function remotely for a period of time. Many businesses have a couple of sites that they could rent space if they needed an alternative site during the disaster. That will save some money. You can put in place a simple memorandum of understanding with estimates of cost and contact information, or you can execute contracts for guaranteed space. Number 4, the last step, communications plan. How will you communicate? During a disruptive event, do you know what is most critical to communicate and to whom? A communication plan should include message content, frequency of messaging, procedure on how to communicate the message to internal, external customers and other stakeholders, identify communications methods, and include a variety of communication styles and methods that will appeal to the various stakeholders and be available during various emergencies. For each communication, ask yourself the following: what is the intent of your message? Who are your audience? Is this a formal or informal message? The goal of your communication plan is to make your communications most effective, and your process efficiently can do that during the time of emergency. communication infrastructure often is impacted during any emergency time and can be down for an extended period of time. It is important to have various methods from emails, company website, internet, texting, to even a phone call to ensure messages reach the intended audience. So these were the business survival plans and 5 steps, very simple steps that anyone can do. Shubhadeep, I'm on slide 9. Yes, this slide 9. Yes. Yeah, that's fine. Opportunities in disguise, which I wanted to discuss with you. Time of crisis lead to new opportunities. I can give you 2 examples. Google and PayPal. These 2 startups are founded just 2 years prior to the .com slash. The Second World War provided economies of scale to manufacturers and laid the foundation of global leadership for American companies. The balance of payment crisis in India in 1991 led to the economic reforms that helped establish the foundation of modern India. While globalization is here to stay, Western economies and businesses will seek to reduce their resilience on China. We are very much sure about that. Now the question is, will Indian policymakers create the needed policy support by cutting red tapeism and improving our infrastructure? Will Indian businesses be ready to capitalize on these new opportunities? As the saying goes, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. For India, disruptions caused by COVID-19 provided an opportunity for an economic reset. Even prior to COVID-19, India's economic growth was not good. It was declining due to low consumption and investment levels. The disruption in economic activity will reduce GDP growth to only 2% or lower. Now, the small business owners need to focus on health, safety of your employee, of yourself, your customers, and community. This is a public health crisis. And we have to understand that has a direct risk to our lives. And businesses need to prioritize safety and health. The small business owners need to conserve capital and optimize their cost so that the money can be saved. Money should not waste. These tips will help the business survive until such time that the economy starts to recover. The business leaders need to adapt the business model to the post-crisis reality. We know that business strategic models. Next slide, please. Slide number 11. Yes, yes. The slide looks very congested, but for some reason I didn't want to split this content in 2 or 4 slides. Honorable Prime Minister had a clarion call to nation to become Atmanirbhar. The salient features of the vision of the government build a self-reliant nation in post-COVID world was explained by Honorable Prime Minister in his address to nation. And while making the revival strategy, we can actually depend on the government's vision based on which the policies will come out. We have made a summary of the vision that Prime Minister has explained to us, and from this gist, we can prepare our revival strategy. I can offer you 7-point strategy, revival strategy for your business from the clues that Prime Minister has given to us. Number one, Prime Minister mentioned that in the times of global crisis, India gives a ray of hope to all through its teaching of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It means the world is a family, the world is united. From this clue, we can make our revival strategy number one. Be a part of world business community. Spread the width and breadth of your business beyond the domestic boundary and cater to the need of the world. This is our revival strategy number one. Second, Prime Minister mentioned the crisis is an opportunity in disguise for India. India needs to be self-reliant. Self-reliance is the key to unlocking deep potential of India. Make your revival strategy number two. Explore your full potential and unlock the future opportunities whenever it will appear before you. Number three, Prime Minister has mentioned that just as India has gifted yoga to the world, contemporary medical research in India has earned respect globally. With a rich history and heritage, India has been rising on the evolutionary curve with a motto of betterment of the world. World is learning from our history. India is moving towards a new dawn. India's self-reliance does not advocate for any self-centered system. Now make your survival strategy number three. Explore the business potential based on your traditional knowledge of science. Here I would like to mention that the estimated value of yoga industry globally is around 80 billion USD. That probably many of us do not know. So make a strategy based on our age-old practices and traditional knowledge of science. Now coming to point four, Prime Minister mentioned about 5 pillars of self-reliance: economy, infrastructure, technological system, demography. demand and supply chains. Make your survival strategy number 4. Emphasize on each of these 5 factors. Do what will contribute to economy. Give focus on developing the infrastructure. Apply the cutting edge technology. Plan for the young people by taking the dividend of demography. Take the example of, I would like to give you the example of Sony Walkman. The Sony Walkman was a disruptive strategy, disruptive technology of Sony, targeting the young people. Make a balance between domestic demand and supply chain. That's your revival. Coming to 5, government announced economic packages, which is 10% of our GDP, our country's GDP. The package will cater to land, labor, liquidity, and law that give employment to people. Make your revival strategy number 5. Take the benefit of economic rebooting package. I'm going to explain it in my next slide. Number 6, we need to give a boost to the reforms that range from MSMEs to farming sector. Self-reliance, self-confidence are 2 arms of India. For the daily wage earners and lower income workers, special provisions like local manufacturing, local markets, and local supply chain are taken care of. That was Prime Minister's suggestions. Make your revival strategy number 6. Take care of the local needs. Provide solutions to local problems. Think of micro-organic farming. Focus on creating agricultural MSMEs. I can give you the example of a person who is earning more than 80,000 rupees per month from micro level organic farming from a just 10 by 10 room, which is creating enormous impact on the urban farming. Number 7, Honorable Prime Minister urges people to purchase and propagate local produce and products to support local producers and manufacturers. Vocalizing the local is the need of our hour to make the local a global brand. Now, make your survival strategy number 7. Create a strong brand equity. Show guts to compete in the global market. Involve the stakeholders to advocate and propagate your success stories, which I have already discussed in my first class, our inaugural session. I showed you a complete structure of the system that we are going to develop, where we are giving focus on disruptive strategy, we are giving focus on disruptive technology, we are giving equal focus on creating brand and market network, and arranging finance, other resources, and making a network of all the stakeholders who can support us in our in spreading our business, in making the business viable, and to make it global. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes. MSMEs are considered to be the key drivers of job creation and economic growth in India. They have been the worst hit by the nationwide lockdown that brought economic activity to a halt. MSMEs account for about 45% of the manufacturing output, more than 40% of exports, over 28% of GDP. Honorable Finance Minister delivered the much awaited economic package, bringing relief to the MSME sector. Some of the notable measures announced including rupees 3 lakh crore collateral free automatic loans, rupees 20,000 crore subordinate debt, and revised definition of MSMEs. A total of 6 measures exclusively for the MSMEs were announced by Honorable Finance Minister. In a gist, these measures include: number one, sanctioning 3 lakh crores collateral free automatic loans with a tenure of 4 years, which will have a 1-year moratorium on repayment. The highlight of this incentive is that if there is a default, the government will repay those loans to the banks. Number two, 20,000 crores of subordinate debt. Number three, 50,000 crores of equity infusion. Number four, widen the definition of MSMEs. Number five, disallowance of the global tender for projects up to 200 crores. And lastly, other reforms relating to e-market linkages, ordering the receivables of MSMEs within 45 days, etc. So, as I explained in my earlier slide, the revival strategy number 5, you should take the benefit of this economic rebooting package for the MSMEs. We are working on that. We will be updating you whatever information will be available to us. Next slide, please. In the end note, I should mention that in these difficult times, it is important to stand united and help one another in whatever way we can. So, it's not the problem of any one business entity. We should realize that this is a problem of everyone. We all are suffering, and we have to come out from this problem. We have to come out from this problem unitedly by a joint effort. So, this is my personal appeal to all the participants that please follow the instructions that we are sending to you, all the exercises that we are requesting you to complete of your own, so that your personal ability to solve the problem increases, and thus we can empower you. This entire process of eBootcamp can empower you so that you come up in a new strength after this lockdown.